photo retouch. We're going to work with a photograph of a model, and we're going to work with a camera raw file, and we're going to learn how to liquefy and do some advanced. We're going to learn how to liquefy to reshape the face and the body, and we're going to learn an advanced technique for smoothing skin. And then we'll turn it into a little ad for our magazine project. Okay. So to start with, we're going to open up a camera raw file. Okay, this is a DNG. And when you work with camera raw in Photoshop, it opens up in camera raw, and that's what we're looking at right here. You can see this photograph. I don't know if she was laying down or it was photographed on her side, but we're inside camera raw, and there's already been settings attached to this. We're going to come over here to camera raw, and then we're just going to look at our basic settings. You kind of see the settings that were applied the last time I used this camera raw, and I think they've been applied to this. It looks pretty good, but what we're going to do is I'm going to hold down the Option key, and you see where I got basic up here, and I held down the Option key. I can reset all of them. I can reset my curve, all these ones, but holding down Option lets me reset basic, and I'll just put it back to there. Okay. In this dialog box over here that we can zoom in, I'll show you. This is basic, and I held down Option and I reset basic. Okay. Our white balance, we can do it as shot, or depending on where it was, auto, daylight, custom. We have our set white point dropper. We can choose various lighting conditions that the picture was shot under. I'm just going to use as shot for now. Okay, I'm going to, there's two things I'm going to see auto in there. I'm going to show you auto, but I'm going to back up so you can see what happens when I apply auto to this. Okay, that warmed up the photo. It did a nice job. That's pretty well all it did. It didn't alter the exposure. This shot again was a professional shot, so it was beautifully lit. And I think I'm just gonna leave it like that. I think I like how the auto warmed it up a bit. I'm not gonna do anything else to that. I can do whatever I want. I can star rate it. I can do various things here. We have our curve dialog box, which you can see I've already added a slight S turn to this file. We have our detail, sharpening, noise reduction. These are defaults, and I'm leaving those at the default. Our color mixer, changing all our, altering our hue, saturation, brightness, or our color mix, whatever you want to do. See that? We can do work illumination. Work with color this way, dealing with the color with hue, saturation, or deal with your hue, saturation, lightness on each of the 9 colors. Okay, so you got saturation, you got luminance, and you got all, right? So a lot of color mixing in here, okay? This photo doesn't need any work, okay? It's been nicely shot, so I'm not really worried about that. But right inside camera raw, we have our color grading that resembles video color grading. We're dealing with our mid-tone shadows and highlights, and I can actually, my mid-tone colors around. I can play with the saturation of the colors, the tone, the brightness. I can deal with the shadows of the colors, the midtones, or the highlights, or all three right there. Blending and balance, of course, I'm going to hit down Option and reset it because I didn't really want to do anything to this. We can defringe our color optics. Again, this is a little bit more advanced. Defringing is when you have a bright color and it goes beyond the border what it wants. Usually red does that, and you want to defringe that. Geometry, I can scale it. I can put in my, I can crop it. I can do my thirds. I can divide it up to make it easier for me to grade it. Okay. We have effects. which is grain and vignetting. Grain, you can add texture to your file. This lets you give a digital file some film texture. Okay, sometimes you may want grain. If you're matching two different film shots, a film and a digital, you may want grain. And vignetting just lightens or darkens the corners. Okay, and this is for yes. And calibration, if I want to calibrate my camera, I can calibrate the camera, so the calibration will match everything, okay? We're pretty good. We're pretty good. So, that's all I want to do. So when you deal with a Camera Raw file, it opens up in Camera Raw, okay? This is a DNG, which is an Adobe digital negative, and as I mentioned before, each camera comes with its own Camera Raw file. Only cameras make Camera Raw files, so to speak. And that's one thing nice about that is that you can't overwrite it. You can't take it. So this Camera Raw file I can't save it, overwrite it. What I'm doing is I'm creating settings and altering it. And what it does it on a sidecar file. And the sidecar file is a .xmp file. And it travels around with my Camera Raw file. And when I open up my Camera Raw file, it opens up the attached XMP file, and applies those settings to my Camera Raw file. And then I save my Camera Raw file as something else, a Photoshop document, a JPEG, a TIFF, whatever I want. But at Camera Raw, it's still the same how it came from my camera, okay? Camera Raw file, I'll give you a handout on Camera Raw so you can read it. You have to listen to me talk. So when I'm done here in Camera Raw, I can set done and I'm done, and it'll put it away and it'll close the XMP file and my Camera Raw file. Or I can hit open, and I can open it as a smart object if I want. I can open up a copy of it. I'm just going to open it up. And there it is there. Okay. She's laying the wrong way. So first thing I can do, image rotation, 90 clockwise. There we go. So we're getting there. There's my model shot. I can it's a high-res photo, lots of pixels. Again, I'm going to turn this into an ad for my magazine, so I'm going to need a bleed. This is a full-page ad, so it's going to be 8.5 by 11 plus the 1/8 bleed, which adds a 1/4 inch to it, so it'll be 8.75 by 11.25. Okay, I can resize that now. One of my favorite ways is doing this with the crop tool, but I think what I'm going to do first off is just do a little cosmic retouching here. You can see. I mean, she's of course, a very beautiful woman, but she's got a mole here on her lip, and her lips aren't even. It could be because she's laying on her side. I don't know if she's laying on her side or just that. So I want to remove this mole and even out her lips and her eyes. This eye, I'm going to just open it up just a little bit and whiten her eyes. Okay. That's about it, I think. So we're going to use a filter called Liquify to straighten out her nose. You can see she's got like just a slight little crooked. I'm just going to even it up. This is natural. This side nostril looks a little bit bigger than that. So I just want to even this up. And we're going to use this program called Liquify. And Liquify takes your Photoshop document and throws it into RAM and makes every pixel editable, movable. You can slide it. It's like liquid. It's very RAM intensive because it takes your whole document and puts it in RAM. So what I'm going to do to save processing power is I'm only going to select the part of the file that I'm going to be working with at the time. Okay, so I'm going to take my marquee selection tool, feather of 0, not that it really matters, but my mask will show up, but I don't. That's why I want a feather of 0. So I'm going to take a selection of her nose. There it is. Okay. And I'm going to move into liquefy. It's a filter. Filter, liquefy. Okay, you can see it right there. See, filter, liquefy. And, excuse me. So I click. And this is one of the filters that opens up in its own dialog box. Okay. And here it is in its own dialog box. I'm just going to zoom in a bit on this. And you can see, here's the part that I had selected with my selection tool, and it's here in RAM. Okay. You know, I'm going to close this because I think I want a little bit more selected. Let's just deselect that. Let's do this again. And I want all the way down to her left. There we go. Now, filter, liquefy. Okay. I'll just zoom in a little bit just to give us a better view. I'll come over here to our toolbar. And this is our toolbar here. The first tool, the active tool, is the forward warp tool. Okay, this is the tool I use to warp my pixels. We have a reconstruct tool, and as you warp, you can reconstruct. You can smooth out the effect. You may get, depending on the size of your brush, you may get little lumps. You can smooth it out. I can twirl. So besides forward warping, I can twirl, I can pucker, I can bloat, I can shift pixels. Push pixels, left tool. Okay, and I'll show you how those work. Okay. And they have keyboard commands to bring up the tools. We have a freeze tool where you can freeze part of the area that you won't affect. Obviously, our masking tool, and a new advantage, the face tool. Okay, I'm working on the face, but you don't have this on earlier versions, and we don't have it at school, so I'm going to skip over the face tool for a second. Okay, so we'll talk about these tools. So I'm just going to zoom out, take my forward warp tool, and it's controlled by your settings over here on the right side, okay? Your properties for this. Excuse me. We have the size of the brush, the pressure of the brush. The higher the pressure, the more it's going to warp. You know, you have a lower pressure, you can actually build it up. We have a density, so how thick the brush is, how much pressure you put, and the rate of the brush. Okay, if you have a stylus and all that kind of stuff, you can, depending on how hard you push. We got face aware liquefy. You know something? We got the mouth, we got the face shape, the size of the eyes, the tilt of the eyes. This is not in the version at school, so we won't cover that right at the moment. We have mesh. What it is that we're making a mesh, and I'll show you that. We also have masking options where I can mask part of it and it won't reveal, it'll hide part of the effect. Okay. So I'm going to start warping this, and then I'll show you the mesh, and then we'll talk about the mesh before. So I'm going to make the brush a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to grab the center of her nose and just move it over a little bit. I make my brush a little bit smaller so I can get in this nostril. Back down a bit. You see, I'm just kind of reshaping her nose. There. I'm going to make my brush bigger now because I'm going to grab this center part of her nose and just push it in. Ever so slightly. You can see how much it's doing it. That relates to the pressure. So if I take the pressure down, you can see I'm not there. I'm getting much more control over what's going on. Right. Okay, the size of the brush makes it depend what you're grabbing and moving over. Okay, So I think I've straightened out her nose a little bit. Let's go into, let's click apply. Let's click OK, and I'll just show you what I've done so far. So you can see before, after, before, after. Yeah, just to straighten it up a little bit. I think that worked really well. Okay, let's go back to filter liquefy, and I'm going to zoom in a bit, and I'm going to turn on show mesh, and you can see the mesh from what I altered it. You can see how I can actually change the shape of the mesh. Okay, and I can save the mesh and load it again. So if I was doing this again to the same picture, I could save all my altering, right? So you can, I don't know if you can see this or not, but the mesh is altered also as I'm doing this, okay? And I can save the mesh. This is the mesh color, the mesh lines, and you can see, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm actually creating and I'm altering a mesh, and I can load the mesh and do it over again. Okay, but I'm happy with my nose work liquefied. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is her eyes, because one eye is a little bit closed compared to the other one. Filter, liquefy. I'm going to turn off my mesh. I don't need the mesh. I'm going to choose the face aware tool. I'm going to zoom in a bit. I'm going to come over here to my face aware liquefy, and so eye distance. Can I move the eyes apart? Oh yeah, look at that. My left tilt. Let's see what I'm doing here. And width of the height of the eye. So this one here, I'm going to make it. Okay. I think I'm going to do the height on the right eye also. There we go. Beautiful. The nose height and width, I'm going to keep that. The mouth. So my upper lip. I can increase the size of my upper lip. I can change the width of the mouth. I think I'm going to leave that right at 0. Height. So this is a lot more advanced than we have at school. You can see how Photoshop's AI, is dictating what's the eye. I think I really like these features. Let's go to my eye. Tilt looks the same. Height just a little bit. There we go. Very nice, very nice. It didn't straighten the nose. We can make this nose higher and wider, but we can't straighten it out. So which I had to do with the liquefied tools. Okay. There's my nose height right there. I can take my brush. All right, I like that. I'm going to put that back to 0. So this is the first time I've actually seen this tool. Okay, looks pretty good. It looks good. Otherwise, I would just be taking my forward warp tool and just warping the eye. But you can see now the AI of Adobe has put hotspots there, so I can actually target these hotspots and I can move them up myself. See that? And I'm just going to undo that. Very nice. I can change the shape of her face. Her face looks pretty good already. And Illustrator's AI has determined what is the face. What is that? it's perfectly shaped anyway, so I'm not going to do anything there. But there we go. So I've liquefied it. I can change it. Let's just see what I've done so far by clicking OK and undoing it. See that? Much nicer. Okay. Liquefy. Very nice. So we're getting there. The next thing I need to do is to repair this little mole here. I'm gonna tighten up her skin and smooth out these little bumps in her grain, but I can't remove this mole here. That's a little bit too much to do with skin retouching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this pimple here with the healing brush, which is J on your keyboard. Okay, the healing brush heals texture, not color. So if I option click here, I can clone this texture right over top of here. And I have to set the settings current and below. I'm going to take my brush size just to be relatively the same size as my mole. Look for some nice texture. There's one right here. Option click. Yeah, see that's not pretty good. I'm going to try over here. Option click. Yeah, so it's getting there. We want that. So looking pretty good. I'm going to undo it again and do it maybe one more time. So if I option and I click here, it does a nice job. But what it does, I don't know if you see, but once you click, it heals. So it replaces with the texture of my healing brush, but then it takes all the edge pixels and tries to heal. And when I'm trying to heal something close to a different color like this red lipstick, it heals the red. And so what happens is my red lipstick kind of pulls in and it messes up the file. So before I heal, I'm going to take my lasso tool. I'm going to make a selection of the area I want to heal, okay? And avoiding the red lipstick. I got a feather of 0, and I'm not going to, so I'm going to just select that mole, and I got part of the lipstick. Do that one more time. And we'll take some of this area out here too. Okay, so J on my keyboard, the healing brush. Okay, the healing brush is with the spot healing brush. You can use that to remove a bird in the sky or a plane. You just brush over it and it should disappear. The healing brush for what we're trying to do. The patch tool, if you have a big patch of area you want to go, like a whole bunch of rough skin. Content aware move tool and the red eye tool. Okay, the content aware move tool, well, it's aware of all the stuff on it. When you move stuff around, it moves with it too. It's kind of interesting. I'll show you that later. Okay, not this lesson, but later. So here I am here. I've got my file. I've got my selection made. I've got my healing brush. I'm going to alt-click the sample spot there and then just heal that like that. And let's do that one more time. Whoops. Edit. Redo lasso. There we go. And there we go. Gone. You can't see it at all. Okay. Command 0 fit the window. Okay. So, good. There's one more thing I want to do to this woman and liquefy. Her ears are nicely shaped. It's her mouth. So I'm going to make a marquee selection of her mouth. Filter liquefy. Okay, I'm going to take the forward warp tool and make my brush a little bit smaller. And I'm just, you see how, I want to make this side as round as that side. I think I'm going to move this over a bit too. And I think I'll take my pressure. I brought my pressure down just to show you that the pressure controls the brush more. And I think I should have a bigger brush. Let's just bring this over here a little bit more. It's not really in the middle. So what the liquefy does, I mean, I'm not actually just liquefying the lips. I'm liquefying all the pixels around it. And this is how people usually find out that you actually liquefy, because they can see some distortion in the area around what you liquefied. But that one looks pretty normal to me. Looks pretty good. It's just, there we go. Looks better than it did before. It's a little bit level. I'm going to all the brush, do this down here like that. There we go. Okay. So before, after, right? Okay. There we go. So what's important to do, I've opened up this camera raw file into Photoshop, and so I haven't actually saved it yet. So it's all sitting just in RAM. I should save my file. Well, it's going to, we'll call it model. It's going to end up being an ad for perfume sooner or later. Okay, so we're moving on, and we're going to notice here we've got texture in her skin. You can't really help that. You can see little bumps, little blemishes or whatever. And I'm going to just smooth it out. There's plenty of ways. We used to smooth things out before. A lot of time we would blur, and we would use the healing brush. Would be a nice one. A nice little blur. I'm going to show you something that's a little bit more advanced. Okay. A little bit more advanced option for photo retouching. Okay. And for smoothing out skin. But before I do that, I'm going to do one more thing. No, I'm not. I'm going to do that. Sorry, I get carried away sometimes. So let's go 100%. So what I'm going to do is called frequency separation, which sounds kind of weird. But if I try to smooth out the color, I end up blurring the texture. And if I try to increase the texture, I make weird color spots. So what this is going to do, it's called cross frequency separation. So I'm going to separate the color of my model from the texture of my model. Okay. Sounds a little bit confusing, but when you actually get down to it and do it step by step, it's relatively simple. Okay. So I'm going to show you that now, and what I'm going to do first is I'm going to duplicate my layer 2 times. And Command J is my favorite way to duplicate the layer. Command J or Control J on your PC. And these 2 layers are going to be my retouching layers. Okay, so I'm going to actually select these 2 layers by holding down the Command key. And they're both selected. Hold down the Shift key, I apologize. Well, the Command key would work also. And I'm going to put them in a set. So I got them both selected, and if I come down to the bottom of my layers palette, as you can see here, we have the layer set or group, create new layer group. So I'm going to click that button, and they're now in a group. Okay, I can name the group FS for frequency separation, just so you know what we're doing. I'm going to open up the 2 layers here. The bottom layer, I'm going to call color. The layer above it, it's going to be my texture or my detail layer. And we'll just call this our model layer. Okay. So what I need to do first is, well, I'm going to turn off my detail layer because you're always looking from the top to the bottom. So this detail layer is covering up everything below it. So I'm going to turn it off because I just want to look at the color layer. Okay. And I'm going to select the color layer because I'm going to apply a filter to that layer. And that filter is going to go on whatever layer is selected. So I want it on the color layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a blur to this. I want to just blur out her skin texture. Okay, and I'm not worried about texture. This is just the color layer. So I'm going to go filter, blur, and I'm going to use our favorite blur, Gaussian blur, because it has a slider. Okay, and I'm going to just move this slider up just until I lose the detail on her skin. Yeah, I think 6. Radius 6 pixels. And her skin looks pretty smooth now, doesn't it? But everything's blurred. You know, everything is still blurred. Okay, so, but it's smoothed out. This is my color layer. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to blur this just enough to get rid of the skin tone. Okay, I can still see the eyes and all that kind of stuff and the lips, but just to soften up the skin. Okay. Okay, so the next one, my detail layer, I turn this one. So this one works with a couple features, okay? One's a blending mode, okay? On the blending mode I'm going to use is called linear light, okay? You're not going to really see anything now. I mean, it's going to look weird when I put it in linear light, but we'll leave it in normal for now, and I'll put it in linear light later just to show you what's going to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this image and I'm going to use this effect, an image effect, and it's called apply image, okay? You know, I use this a lot of times, you know, apply image. If you got a document, a photo that's really faded, you know, you can try the apply image to apply a duplicate of it in a multiply mode to bring it up. So we're going to go into the detail layer, and we blurred the color layer. And now we're going into the detail layer, okay? You can kind of see there's my blurred color layer, blurred by 6 pixels. The detail layer, the first thing I'm going to do to create my detail is put it in a linear blending mode. Linear blending mode, okay? And then I want to apply this image, okay? Apply it to the color layer, okay? And we're going to use the linear light blending mode, and then the effect called apply image. Okay. Inside my apply image dialog box, I'm going to, of course, the source is going to be model. The layer I'm going to apply, so I'm on the layer above the detail, and the layer right below is color. Okay. That's the one I'm going to do. Okay. You can see what this looks like, normal, different blending modes. Because I'm using the subtract blending mode because I want to subtract this detail from the color layer. Maybe a little bit confusing, but just remember these steps. I want to subtract my applied image. The blending mode is the subtract blending mode, okay? The layer right below is color, my channel RGB. This opacity, 100%. I want to do this at 100%. I have no mask or no opacity in here, so I don't have to worry about that. But my scale, my offset of 2 and 128 are a default setting, and I'm going to keep those settings, 2 and 128. If you go here and you notice yours are different, make sure you change it to 2 and 128. Okay. So you don't really see anything, nothing's really happened because you really can't tell. But if I turn off the 2 layers underneath, you can see my texture. See that? And so this layer is my texture layer. Okay. This layer is my color layer. Okay, and so what I'm going to do So if I come back, I'm just going to turn off these layers just so I can see the texture. And what I can do, you kind of see all the bumps there. See all the bumps? See that? So what I can do, and this is 50% gray relatively, okay? So you can see all the texture and all that. And what I want to do is I just want to soften up her cheeks a little bit. There and there, okay? So there's a couple of things you do. I can take my healing brush and I can sample there it is. So I can't, it's kind of hard to see my healing brush. There it is. See that? I move it around and it lights up. So there it is there. I can actually sample. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Sample some of this soft skin here and then paint it over here. And all that. You know, what I like to do, and a lot of people use the healing brush, they sample some skin and then they heal it. So you come up here, you sample this skin option, and then you brush it down over here. Right. So that that works also. Okay, let's go back here to linear light. What happened? Image. Apply image. There we go. Okay, so a lot of people, you take soft skin up here and then you just, what I like to do is I like to take my paintbrush and sample over here in this soft area right there. 50% gray, usually what this is. Okay. And I make my brush a little bit smaller and I lower the opacity so I can build the effect up. And I just paint like this. Then over here. And I can see what I'm painting on. I can see how I'm softened up. Make my brush a little bit smaller and I can get these little bumps under her eyes. Take the strip down the middle of her nose. And I'm softening up her skin. And I put this back on. I'll put that later on in this layer. And you can kind of see how much softer her skin is. You can see. Right? You can still see textures, but I'm just softening the skin. See that? And I can come over here and I can actually just paint right on. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. You can actually see. And what's nice is that the color remains the same. You know, I'm just actually softening her skin. I'm not actually, when you're cloning and healing, you know, you're trying to bring colors over and, you know, those colors kind of, you know, looks pretty good. Let's take some of these little bumps out of here. So what I'm doing is I'm painting with 50% gray on my detail layer. Because in the linear light mode, that's what it did. It turned it to 50% gray. So the whole texture is 50% gray, and I'm painting with 50% gray, and I'm just softening up. You know, I'm just painting soft skin. Okay. There we go. Again, this is a layer. And there we go, not bad. Okay. So you can see how that works. Next thing I want to do is even out the colors, okay? And you can kind of see she's a little bit soft, okay? And I'm going to go to the color layers. I'm going to blur the colors so they are smaller. They're not little patchy colors, okay? And what I would do is I would take my magic wand, not my magic wand, my lasso tool. I'd give it a nice big feather, and I would lasso an area and then do that. And then I'd move on to the next one. I'm going to show you a new tool, it may not be new, but the quick mask mode, okay? Quick mask mode is at the bottom of your layers palette, bottom of your toolbar, and it's a little button. If you hit Q on your keyboard, you can see it highlights quick mask mode. Masking, we all know about masking, making selection, turning things to mask, black mask, white reveals. But what the quick mask mode does is it lets me use a paintbrush as my masking feature. And when I paint, I get this rubylith, okay? And it's coming in the opacity of my dye. I think I lowered the opacity, so I just to work on my detail there. I'm gonna bring the opacity back up, and you can see I'm painting with red. And when I hit Q, it turns wherever I painted into a mask. See that? It's red because it's supposed to represent rubylith and how we used to make screens in the old days. I keep on saying that. You know, we would cut our designs in the rubylith, cut the design out of the rubylith, put the rubylith on the screen, put the ink through the screen, and it would come through the holes. So, and then that's why it's a default red color. Okay, it can be any color you want. Of course, if you double click the tool, like most tools in Adobe, if you double click the tool option comes up, and I can change the color and the opacity, and whether it's a selected area or a masked area I'm showing, okay? And I want the selected area, okay? And I'll use red because it works well. And I would get a feathered selection. So if I paint with a soft edge brush, I'm going to get a feathered selection, okay? So before I start painting, I'm going to put my opacity to 0 and then just paint my selection in. So I'm just going to go on her chin. Okay. And then when I'm done, I could actually go down here to the button at the bottom of my toolbar or hit Q, which puts me back in normal mode, selection mode. I'm on the right layer, the color layer. That's important. And I'm going to blur the colors. Filter, blur, and we'll use Gaussian blur. And I'll take this way up. There we go. It's a little bit too. There we go. That's nice. I still want the highlight, but I want a nice even tone. Beautiful. And that's 27.5. Not bad. Click OK, deselect. It's not bad at all. I'm going to take my mat and I'm going to maybe. Whoops. I'm on the mask mode. Q. Quick mask mode, that's what I want. Okay, quick mask mode, and I'm painting. There we go. And maybe just Q. Let's run that same blur on it again. So I go to the filter, right underneath it says Gaussian blur, the first one. And that will run the same filter with the same effect. And I think that was too much. So let's undo that. Hit Command D because I got Q for quick mask mode again, and then let's just avoid that spot right there. Let's just take this. All right, and then Q, filter. You know that? Too much. So I'm going to go filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and maybe take that down to maybe. Yeah, that's pretty good. And I turn the preview off. You can see that? You can see, hopefully you can see if you zoom in, I'm just evening out the color tones, right? See that? You can kind of see. That's all I want to do. Okay. So I'll click OK. That's going to deselect that one. I'll hit Q again to get me back in quick mask mode. And get my paintbrush, P. And I think I just want to... Okay, and it's important to leave some texture in the woman's face and the skin. You know, you don't want to make them look plastic and not real. And Gaussian blur. There we go. I'll apply the same one to both sides. There. Nice work. Okay, so that, I'll show you what our just evening out the skin texture and the tone. You know, I think I may play with the forehead a bit. Let's get here. Let's get B, my paintbrush. I'm painting with the 50% gray. And let's just, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's undo that. Let's take my opacity way down. With my opacity down low, I can actually build the effect, okay? That way I can keep on brushing over and I just do a little bit at a time. There we go. I don't want to get rid of any of the water droplets. Just want to smooth out her skin. And you can see we got some color problems here. So let's get her forehead now. Let's get to the quick mask mode. Q, let's take my opacity from my brush back to 100. And let's paint. Okay. Q, you may find that you may like this way to paint to make your selection by using a paintbrush. When I first started Photoshop, I was very big on the quick mask mode. After a while, you become better in other ones. But it works really well. There's nothing wrong with it. You even have square brushes. So if you want to, if you want to select a building or things like that, the quick mask mode may be an easier way for you to make selections. Okay, so let's go blur this. Gaussian blur. Yeah, that's pretty good. So, see that? Whoops. Too many things. Too many undos. Okay, filter or Gaussian blur. And that's pretty good. I like that. And you can kind of see what it looked like before and after. Deselect. All right. Okay, so let's just, again, I'm going to just turn off my FS group and you can see. Beautiful job. The blurring of the colors, which you really don't think about, does a lot for making the skin smooth. Okay, we still have texture, you can still see, but it's a lot smoother now. Okay. So this is a little bit more advanced way to fix problem skin, but it does a beautiful job and it just takes a few extra steps. Now that you've got the steps recorded here, and you can, this will be your new favorite feature. Okay, so I'm going to turn this into an ad now. So, and I'm going to continue working on this young lady here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of her eyes. Okay, I want to brighten them up again. Okay, I'm just going to zoom in a bit, and I'm going to do that by using an adjustment layer. Okay, adjustment layers. When you click a new adjustment layer, it goes over top of the active layer. So I'm going to make sure my active layer is the top layer, and I'm going to click adjustments. I'm going to choose levels. And my levels dialog box over here, let's see, you can see we've got, I've got my black, my midtones, and my whites. Okay, I can move my sliders around and change the dark in the midtones, light in the midtones. bring in the lights, the shadows, all kinds of things I can deal with in each color of my color channel. I can use auto to bring in this effect. What you don't want is clipping. You don't want anything out. You don't want your blacks. You see, this is called clipping here, where my blacks have actually clipped out. See that? And my whites have clipped out. And you can control that by your output levels and all that kind of stuff. So let me back out of here. Let me back out of here so you can see what I'm doing. Let's just undo my auto. There you go. But we have these three eyedroppers right here. We have the set black point, set midpoint or gray point, and set white point. So if you know in your file what color should be white, what should be black, what should be a mid-tone, you can use your eyedroppers to choose those, to set those values, and it should image correct your file. But I'm using this for a different reason at the moment. I'm going to set the set white point eyedropper, and I'm going to click on the whites of her eyes. Okay, because I want the whites of her eyes to be white, and you can see the whole document's white. It really overshot. Everything's blowing out of exposure, but I'm not worried about that at the moment. Okay, all I'm worried about is I'm looking at her eyes. Okay, and that's all I'm worried about. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mask out, because you can see over here my adjustment layer. All adjustment layer come with mask. The mask filled with white does nothing. I'm going to fill this mask with black. Edit fill using black, or hit D to load your default colors, and then Command delete. Command delete fills the background color. Option delete fills with the foreground color. Okay. And so, or edit fill. Okay, so now I've applied the levels, and then I masked them out so you can't see anything. Right? I can hold down the Shift key, click on the mask temporarily, and it temporarily disables. You can see that X there. You see that X in your label. So that's a way to turn off your mask by holding Shift, click on it. It doesn't delete it, it just disables it for a second so you can see it. Okay. Or, there you go. Okay, so now I'm going to get a paintbrush. Obviously, you've seen my steps enough times that you know I added the adjustment, masked it out, and then now I'm going to paint it back in where I want the effect to show, which is just on their eyes. Okay, I'm going to have a nice soft edge brush, 0 hardness, so it can blend in, and I'm just going to paint with white on the mask to reveal my levels adjustment layer, and then brighten up her eyes, her pupil, as well as the whites of her eyes. Right? And remember, we love our 2 square brackets there. We can make our brush smaller and larger while we're working on it in the window. You know, you can't beat that. Look at that, there you go. I'm just going to step back, Command 0, and it looks a little freaky. But they're nice and white, though. It looks a little freaky. But what's beautiful about this is that I have it's a layer, it's an adjustment layer. So this layer has an opacity going from 0 to 100. So I have 100 settings. I can tone this down. And I won't tone it down that much. Maybe 86. There we go. Okay, so next thing I want to do, let's zoom back into her eyes. I think I like that. It worked well. Just click on that window. And then zoom back. Okay, cool. I want to change the color of her eyes. I want to make them more blue to match our blue background. See this? Okay. So I'm going to do a hue saturation adjustment layer. Okay. So I'm going to again put this over top of everything else. Hue saturation on top. You can see nothing happened because I haven't changed the settings yet. Here's my hue. So I'm going to change the hue of those blue-gray and see if I can make them. Nothing's really happened. I'm changing the hue of everything, but the eyes, you know, so the eyes were a gray color, and it's really, you know, it's hard to change the hue of gray. You can see I'm really changing the hue of the blue background, right? because it's more deep color. But gray doesn't really hold much color, so you can see my hue's not really doing much. Okay. So throw that in the trash. That one didn't work. Let's try another one before I go what I'm probably going to do. We can try color balance. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put more blue in my color balance. There we go. And maybe some more cyan. There we go. So that's making her eyes look nicer. More blue. So I'm playing around with my color balance. Putting more blues in there. Let's just turn this on and off for a second. Yeah, it's getting there. Let's try something else. So let's try, there's a couple more things I'm going to do, changing the color of her eyes. And channel mixer. Let's see what our channel mixer can do. So let's take off some of the reds, the greens. Let's take these out. Let's move these down. Let's bring up the blues. Yeah, see, again, when I'm dealing with gray, it's really hard to alter the color of gray. So neither of these works. The one, the color balance kind of worked well. But I'm going to show you another one. One of my features, my thing. I'm going to take a new blank layer. I'm going to put the new blank layer in color blending mode. And hit my eyedropper. Eye for the eyedropper and sample some blue here in the background. Okay. Fill the layer with blue. There you go. What's that look? Did that do something nice? Yeah. Well, let's mask it out and let's play with it. Okay, so I have a layer filled with blue and I want to mask it out completely. So I'm going to add my layer mask down the bottom of my layers palette, holding down Option, which is going to add a black mask filled with black, which hides everything. Okay. Which lets me get my paintbrush and paint it back in. Right? Same thing we do all the time. Yeah, that's a more blue. I think I like that. I'm avoiding not painting on the black of her eyes or in the white of her eyes. Just, there we go. Command, 0. Whoa, she's pretty freaky looking eyes. But they're bluer. Again, I can lower the opacity a bit. I think I'll take it maybe to 80. Not bad. Okay. You can kind of see again. By Option clicking on the model layer, which the only thing I did was liquefy, you can see all the options what I've done so far. See the rough skin and then the smooth skin. There we go. Okay. Beautiful. Next thing I'm going to do, and I don't do this very well, I'll apologize right off the bat, is I'm going to add some makeup to this young lady, okay? I'm going to create a new layer, put the layer in the color blending mode, call this eyeshadow, because that's what it's going to be. And I'm going to paint with that same blue again that I have in the background. All right, and let's make my brush a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to paint blue. Color blending mode. Looks pretty ugly. But I'm just giving her makeup. Eyeshadow, I guess they call that. It's kind of freaky, but I'm not done yet. And in my experience, in the time that I've taught this course in photo retouching, I know people who put makeup on more are much better at doing this than me. So I don't have any practice. I don't wear makeup, so I don't know what that's going to do. All right, let's actually do something else. Let's give me even a darker blue. And let's make my brush even smaller. Let's just, that's purple. I don't want purple, I want to make darker blue. I want to turn to purple. All right. Okay, kind of scary, but I'm going to lower the opacity. And I think I'm going to add a slight blur to these two. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And I think I'll do it just about just a couple pixels. Okay, I'm going to add another layer, and this is going to be eyeliner. And eyeliner is get D for my black. Get a really small brush. Whoops. Okay. I'm not too crazy about that, but I'm going to put that in the multiply because I want to make it a shadow. I'm going to lower the opacity quite a bit and blur it and filter, blur. And where's my paintbrush B? And I think I may just I don't think I should have did that. I'll do it in another layer, and then maybe I might just okay, let's try it. Multiply, lower the opacity. There we go. And maybe blur it. Filter, blur. And the opacity is really low. Let's take it up a bit. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm ruining it. I don't know if I should put that on. Okay. There. Okay, I don't know if that's making it look better or worse, but it's there now. Okay, so now I think I'm going to add a little pink to her cheeks, just because I can. And I don't know what this. We'll just call this lower lid. I don't know what it is I did, but there we go. And we'll do another layer, and we'll call this cheeks. And I'm going to take a nice pink color for her cheeks. I'm going to put this in a color blending mode. As always, a nice soft edge brush. Nice big one. Add a little pink. Okay, again, my opacity slider. Take this down to almost nothing. Just so you see a little bit of. There we go. Okay. So an ad. So this is going to be an ad for perfume. I'm just turning it into that. I mean, this lesson was what I just did. Photo retouching and liquefying. Oh, I know what I want to do now. Let's make her hair blue too, to match everything else. So I'm going to make a new layer. Let's get my eyedropper. When I have the paintbrush and I hold down the Option key, it turns to the eyedropper. So let's sample that. Let's fill the layer. Put the layer in a color blending mode. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I like that. Mask out everything. Get my white paintbrush. And paint it back in. So I sampled the color, the blue, for her eyes, for her hair. And you can see I'm kind of painting on her skin here, but it's kind of hard to get these really edge pixels. I'm going to show you a trick I use to do that. So I paint. Right, I think I'll just paint over here, even though the light from the camera is making her hair good. All right, I like that. Okay, so now I'm going to remove it. Okay, so again, it was a mask by painting with white. So if I hit X and I paint with black, I'll remove it. Now, a lot of times it's easier to remove than it is to add, right? Or to add and then remove. Okay, there we go. And so I got a soft edge brush. I think it should be at 0. It is at 0. And the bigger the brush is, the softer the edge. And I don't want to paint her skin blue. I just want those little fine hairs blue. So I'm going to, you can see I painted over, went over it. So then I went over it with the white. So now I'm removing it with the black, but I'm using a much bigger brush, a softer edge, so I can get just a nice little faint delete there. Look at that. There we go. Perfecto. There we go. Now she's ready for her ad. Okay. So again, this is going to be an ad for our magazine, and ads are going to be, the magazine page is 8.5 by 11. We're going to add a 1/8 bleed, which gives us again 8.75 by 11.25 inches. So I'm going to crop this, and I bet you, look at that, I probably have those settings already. 8.75 by 11.25. So the crop tool, this is my favorite way of resizing pages. There's a lot. I mean, you can go canvas and image resizing, but I take the crop tool. And in the crop tool, I set my width and height to what I want and my resolution to what I want. All right. I want this to be 8.75 inches by 11.25 inches at 300 pixels an inch. Okay, this is already a high-res file, so I'm not going to be actually making it larger. Okay, I'm going to, roughly pretty around the same size, I would think. Okay, so you can see here I've got rid of her bra because it wasn't blue and it didn't really fit in our thing. I'm going to just add a little more room at top for our ad, our name of our perfume. Do I want even more? Yeah, that's it. Got her almost right in the center of the page. It's now 8.5 by 11 at 300 dpi. We can go image size to check that off, but you kind of see. Look at that, 8.7 by 11.25 at 300 dpi. Exactly what my crop tool is set to, okay? And this, I get to resize it. And that. Okay, so let's make an ad turn this photograph of this lovely lady into an ad for perfume. Again, I'm just doing this just for our magazine, for our portfolio, so we have something to show. This is not I don't have an ad already. I'm not getting paid for this, so I'm not using that. So I'm just going to make this up. So I'm just going to make up a name for my scents. And again, with the text tool, I always make sure I have the top layer, because when I hit with the text tool on my window, it creates a new layer over top of my active layer. And I want my active layer to be on top. So I select a layer on top, and when I click with the text tool, I get a new layer on top of that, okay? You kind of see, I just typed, I couldn't see, but I just typed scents, and I just clicked the checkbox that I spelled it correctly. Because that's all you really need to select your text for, is if you're going to change the spelling, okay? Everything else is live to you. As long as you have the text tool on the text layer, all these options are live to you, okay? And while I'm in here, and if I hold down the command key or the control key on my PC, I can turns to the move tool, so I can move things around, okay? Let's just make this a little bit smaller. It's just, so I'm going to do that. I can type in a number, or if you can see up here, these two T's. You see how I put my cursor turns to that double arrow? That's my scrubber, so I can click and I can scrub. See, I can change in the font size, see that? I can do this right in the window. So that sometimes it's make it a little bit easier to do that, okay? And what did I get? 181 points. So I'm gonna round that off to an even number. I just, not that it makes any difference. And let's try to find a nice font for our perfume. Okay, maybe let's find another font. That one's not doing it for me right now. It was for a second there, but. Hummingbird. Okay, I kind of like that. It's a little bit, needs some work on it. I'm going to make it white just for a second, just so you guys can see it stand out a little bit more. Okay, I think I need to maybe a little bit smaller. I'm going to just use my scrubber here. And maybe take it to 250. Yeah, I think I like that. Okay, so what's important now, though, is that I put a bleed on this, so I don't want to go too close to the top, because I don't want to go over my bleed. There we go. I've just been playing around with my font. I went into the height, and I just made it 75%. I like that. If you look at this font, you want to see, you see how they're not touching. You see that? Right there. And the CE and that aren't touching. The S and the T aren't touching. I can fix that up by changing my kerning, my tracking, and track these in a little bit tighter. There we go. And now they're touching. I still got a little problem with my there we go. I think I like that. There we go. I just brought in the tracking so that there was not a space between each letters in my script font. Okay, let's just bring this back up here. Let's just drop that right there. Okay, so what I want to do now, before I start playing around too much with this, I want to bring my guides in so I can see where my bleed is. And for my guides, I need my rulers. Okay, Command R, Control R shows rulers. Under the view menu somewhere, view rulers somewhere, it says rulers, yeah. Command R. So I'm working in inches, so I want my rulers to be in inches. Okay, they already are, but I just want that to make sure they're in inches. I need a guide 1/8 down. I can actually take my ruler and drag a guide so it's 1/8. I can choose view new guide and place it exactly where I want to. Let's do a vertical one at 1/8 of an inch. Easier if I had pixels, but 1/8 of an inch is 0.125. So I can actually drag them and see where they end up over here by going like this and moving this around like that and coming back 1/8 of an inch. There we go. Or I can go view new guide. Beautiful. Okay, so Command 0. So now I can see sense is where I want it. Okay, if this was a course on designing logos, I may do this in Illustrator and all that kind of stuff. I'm just putting my ad together for my project. So after I've got sense, if I hit Command A and choose my move tool, Command A selects all. I choose my move tool, I can actually drop this right in the center. But I don't think I want it right in the center. I think I want it right there. And I want the font to look a little bit nicer, so I can spend some time adding layers, styles, and all that kind of to it. But I'm going to use a pre-canned style inside Photoshop. Open up my styles palette. I don't know what to use this. What's that look like? Nah, it doesn't look good. Right. Okay, I got to hurry up and find so I can move on with this lesson. Well, we're going to leave that one for now. It may not be the nicest one, but it's there. Okay, so I just picked a pre-canned style from my styles palette. I will just close off my styles palette. You can see it added a nice blue color. If I come over here to my layers palette, you can see what it did. Bevel and emboss, inner glow, color overlay, and a drop shadow. So I really don't like that blue, so I'm going to go to the color overlay, bring up my color that it add, and let's try to use one from there. There we go. That didn't really do much, did it? Let's maybe try a different. Let's choose. We like that color. What if I try multiple? No, let's just go back to normal. Let's go inner glow. Oh, let's give me a yellow. There we go. Okay, I'm just changing the colors. My drop shadow, my bevel and emboss. There we go, my normal color. See this? So it took my bevel and emboss, but it took my highlight color and put a dark blue in there. There we go. I wonder if I actually, there we go. I do white. Okay, there we go. I'm changing, I'm changing the colors. I think I like that a lot better. Let's put this in a screen blending mode. There we go. Take it down a bit. Maybe not. Okay, what else do we got going on here? Color overlay, bevel and emboss, drop shadow. Let's give me an outer glow. And I'm going to take my outer glow, put it in multiply, and give it black. There we go. Let's pick up the spread a bit. There we go. Okay, opacity. You know, I think instead of blue, I'm going to have a dark black on the dark blue. There we go. There we go. Scents. Okay. Let's bring that maybe over here a little bit more. Command T. I am going to just rotate it a bit. Okay, scents. I think now what my ad needs is a perfume bottle. So let's go get one. I probably Google. I did already. This one. Copy image. Back to Photoshop. Make sure this is top image. Paste. Doesn't have the same color space, but that's all right. We're just playing around. There we go. Okay, so let's get rid of the white. W to choose my quick selection tool, or my magic wand actually, because I want to just click on the white. And I'm going to turn this white into a mask, okay? But you know, when you click the add layer mask button, it masks what's selected. Okay, I have the white selected. So I don't want to mask out the white. I want to mask out the white, not what's not selected. So I hold down the Option key, and it does the opposite. All right. Let's see. Without it, it would do that, right? So all you got to do is hit Command Z or Control Z undo, and hold down the Option key. And there we go. Let's zoom in onto that, and it looks kind of all right. What I'm going to do is get my paintbrush. I'm on the mask, black mask, white reveals. And I'm going to paint with white to bring back some of this bottle here that I lost. And I take my softness or hardness actually up to the 90s, because my bottle has actually and then I can hit X, clean up this edge right here. That edge there. Okay. And I'm just removing part of the white that didn't get taken away. And then down the bottom there. So I could have selected that and just hit the delete key and selected that gray color. I'm trying to. There we go. Command 0. Let's just finish this off. Let's take my perfume bottle. Let's just stick her down here somewhere. there. Let's try to change its color. We'll do that by my favorite way, adding a layer of color over top of it. Filling it with a color from my file. There we go. Beautiful. Okay. And let's just, if I clip it to this layer, it should clip to my mask. There we go. See that? Because I only wanted to affect the bottle, so I clip it to it. Okay, let's try something. So I've got my text here. I'm going to put it on the bottle to see if I can do that. Let's just see what happens. I'm going to duplicate that layer. Control J to duplicate the layer. Throw it up over top of everything. Get the move tool. Slider down here. I need to scale it. I'm going to scale it by 20%. Maybe 25. I like using, when I scale things, of course, lock my horizontal and vertical, my aspect ratio. And I used a mount here to scale instead of just scaling freeform. When you use even amounts, because you're working with pixels, and pixels scale nicely on even amounts than they do on weird amounts. Okay, so that's why I just put 25% in there, because I figured that would be good enough. Okay, not bad. So let's zoom in down here on my little bottle here. Looks pretty weird, but let's see what I can do. I think it needs to be smaller. 20%. And there you go. Okay. So what I need to do, because when you scale something that has a layer style applied to it, layer styles get all messed up. Okay. So I'm going to try to scale the effect, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to go layer style. So I've scaled the layer. This time I'm going to scale the effects. Let's just see what happens. It could be good, it could be bad. Let's take her down. There we go. Look at that. Whoops. One's not good. There you go, maybe 20%. Now that, whoops, 20%. There you go. And that looks like the original one, okay? So scaling objects, if you have layer styles applied to them, you have to scale the effects also. Not always, but if you want, you want consistent look, you need to scale your effects. If you get a layer style from the web, there's tons that you can download from the web. I think we might have done that in class. And when you apply to something, you may want to scale it up or scale it down, because effects are created at a certain resolution. Okay, when you change that resolution, the effects change. Okay, so there we go. And of course, my ad should have a tagline, but I can't think of one. Let's just put a company name down. Let's just put. I'm just going to put by L'Oreal. It's a company, I think. And I'm just going to put that there, and I'm just going to go and choose just a normal base font, maybe something like that. Yeah, let's do Menu Pro. Let's go down to 72%. Let's go down to maybe 60%. Right. I'm too crazy about that font, but that's okay. We're just going to go quickly to find something else. Yeah, let's give that a 48 point. Okay, so there is my perfume ad. Okay. So what we learned in here was we learned about sorry. So what we learned, retouching a photo is really what this lesson was about. We got into liquefy, straighten out the nose. We got into liquefy, the face feature where I could actually change the position of the eyes, how big the eyes were, the position of the mouth, the position of the nose. I had to actually get in there with the liquefy forward warp tool and actually straighten the nose. But that's what they do. Okay. So liquefy, and again, I went through this kind of quickly. I'll show you the other tools. I'll just give you this. Let's just jump in with this layer here. And filter, liquefy. Okay, the beautiful new face feature. I really like that. I'm really pleased with that. Okay, so let's just play around with something. So if I take this and I can, what's this tool? So this is my smooth tool, reconstruct tool. So you saw my forward warp, right? We just warps whatever you want. We've got the pucker tool, which kind of puckers whatever you click on. The bloat tool is the opposite. It bloats. Because I got my shift, I got my liquefy, which kind of, turns pixels to liquid. I have my shift pixels left tool. I go up. See that? That's how they thin thighs, by doing that. See that? And if I pull down, it goes the other way. Okay. I have the freeze tool. So if I freeze this part of her nose, I can warp everything else but the part that's frozen. See that? So that's if you're working close to a part that you don't want to alter, you can freeze it and then use the thaw tool to thaw it out when you're done. Okay. We have reconstruct tool, which will slowly reconstruct one click at a time. We have the smooth tool, which will smooth out what I did there. See, I'm kind of just fixing that up a little bit. Okay. Over here we have, of course, I was looking at the face thing, but we have a reconstruct, restore all. So I can reconstruct and it can reconstruct. I'm going to cancel that because I'm just going to cancel what I did. Okay. So we have a thaw and a freeze tool and a reconstruct tool, which we can paint over and reconstruct everything. Okay. I can restore it back to the way it was. I can reconstruct or just hit cancel. Okay. I just want to show you a little bit more features of the liquefy tool. Okay. I think that's it. We made it the right size. We saved it as a Photoshop document. We're going to keep it as a Photoshop document because we're going to apply it to our magazine when we make our magazine soon. Okay? So the liquefy and frequency separation. Okay, where we separated the texture and the color, and we worked on both of them to give us nice smooth skin. Okay? Thank you. That's that one. We're done. As I'm closing the file, I don't know if this will turn out or not, but I'm going to see if I can color her lips a little bit blue to match the blue of everything else. All right, so again, what I always love doing, I'll create a new layer. And the reason why I'm not using the same blue layer all the time is because it all depends on what opacity I want. Some opacity is your eyes are up high, the eyeshadow's way down low. So that's why I'm using different blue layers, okay? So let's get our eyedropper tool. And let's select the blue. Fill our layer and put it in a color blending mode. Okay, and then I'm going to add my mask by holding down my Option key to mask out everything. And then zoom in a bit, make it easy on myself. Get a nice brush with a hard edge, with a soft edge. Well, not zero, but not zero, but you know, somewhere below 50, I think. There we go. I'm gonna paint with white to bring back to show that blue and just see what this looks like. And I got it. That's a blue on her teeth. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit too bright, but we're not done. Okay, then paint it black and fix this up here. I wonder if I could try fix up these little hairs with my detail layer. Okay, so let's go back full screen. Yeah, that looks really weird. Let's just take this down. You know something? I don't know. See, if I come down too far, I'm going to show the red underneath. You know what I could do is I could add a new layer, a new adjustment layer, and I'm going to do this one as hue saturation. I'm going to put it underneath there. Okay, and I'm going to load my selection because I'm going to, I'll show you my plan is if I remove the color from the red lipsticks first, okay, I can fill this with black. I have a selection, I just want to bring the mask down. There's another way I could always do that. I could just copy the mask by holding Alt and just drag it over top of it. Okay. Yes, replace layer mask, that's what I want. There you go. So I have a mask, the same. And what I want to do, my hue saturation is just desaturate the color of her lips. So the blue will work nicely. So now when I lower the opacity of the blue layer, I'm reviewing gray, not the red lipstick underneath. So I can go down a little bit better. There we go. Let's see if that adjustment layer did anything. Yeah, you can see I'm removing that red tint by putting a hue adjustment layer, sucking all the color out of the lips before I add my color layer. I don't know if that looks weird or not, but it probably does. But she's got blue lips anyways. I did it because I could, not because I should. I don't know. I'm going to leave it. I did it now anyways. Okay. I don't know if that was good or not. All right. So one thing else I'm going to try while I'm here is if I go to I'm going to go to my detail layer. Okay, I remember with my paintbrush, I want to paint with a 50% gray. I could just option click and turn off all the other layers and just deal with this layer at the moment. And then option click to get some nice gray, and I think I may and lower my opacity to 40 degrees, 40%. And I'm just going to paint on these little hairs at the bottom of her lip. Just not to remove them, just so they don't stand out as much as they did before. Okay. And by painting with the lower opacity, the more you can build up the effect as you go. And this way, you can gradually do it so you don't overdo it by painting with 100% opacity. I might have overdone it. Let's see what happens when I load that back in and see what that looks like. Yeah, I think that did a nice job. I was just edit undoing, but let's redo. Master opacity change. All right. Let's just go to my history palette. That may be easier to back up. That way I can actually see when I'm backing up to instead of just going one step at a time. Yeah, that's what I want. And this is my last master opacity change. Another one. Nope. Back to there. And you can see this brush tool work on my is showing me how this is jump from the same blending mode. And you can see, there it is. I don't know, do I like that? Remove the little hairs a little bit. Well, it's done now. She's got blue lips.